Good morning. Today I'm going to be talking to you with a summary of chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9 from Frankenstein. Now don't panic. You didn't have to read chapters 8 and 9. We're skipping those, and I'll explain that in just a minute. So we're going to start off with a summary of 6 and 7, which we've just read. Victor had, of course, suffered a very bad fever and illness for months after Henry Crevel showed up at Ingolstadt, where the university is. So he is now recovered, and he gets a letter from home, a letter from Elizabeth. And Elizabeth just kind of updates him on how things are going at home. And, she tells him that there's a woman who had gone home to visit her own mother who was ill and now has come back and is living with the Frankensteins. And this woman is named Justine. So he reads this letter from home, and Victor decides that he would like to go home again. It's been a while since he's been home. He introduces Henry Crevel to his professors in the meantime, and this kind of torments Victor. He's having a tough time with anything that he associates with his work. So going into the labs, introducing the professors, all of that to Henry Crevel takes a toll on him, and he decides that he really needs to go home. So he's waiting. His father is going to write him a letter to tell him when is a good time for him to come home. And he gets the letter from his father. And that takes us into something that's going to be a very negative thing. But in the meantime, while he's waiting for that letter from his father, he takes a walking tour with Henry through nature, through the country. And we see here, this is very in keeping with Romanticism and the Romantics. Remember, we talked about how these are romantic, and Romanticism is the period in which these writers are writing, is this healing quality, this therapeutic quality of nature, the sublime qualities of nature, that it makes you feel better, it is good for your soul. And so he walks with Henry. Victor becomes even more healed, but unfortunately, he, in chapter 7, comes home to that letter from his father. And when he gets back to the university and he reads the letter, his father writes that William is dead. And you might be saying to yourself, oh, wait a minute, who's William? He was barely mentioned in Elizabeth's letter. William is Victor's youngest brother. He has two brothers, and William is his youngest brother. He's a little boy, 5 or 6. William is dead. And what's more, William has not just died from like an illness or something like that. He has been murdered. He has been strangled. So, of course, this is very shocking. This is a terrible thing that's happened. Victor's like, I've got to go home right now. So he heads home right away. And when he gets home, as he's traveling, there's a thunderstorm, a lightning storm. And he comes close to the area where his brother's body was found, his little brother who was strangled. And as he's in that area near where the body was found, a lightning strike happens. And the lightning illuminates something which really hits Victor hard, because in the distance he sees the creature. He sees the gigantic stature of the creature. He realizes the creature is in Geneva, where his home is. Somehow this creature who he left, abandoned his apartment, and then who, when he came back to the apartment, was gone, has managed to come all the way back to Geneva, just as Victor has done. And of course, he can't think that it's good news that this has happened right near the body, right near where the body was found, where his little brother died. So, of course, Victor starts to have some conjecture that maybe the creature was involved in this death. Now, Justine, the woman who's been living with the Frankensteins, has actually been accused of being responsible for little William's death. She is being accused because a locket of Victor and, of course, William and Elizabeth and Ernst, his middle brother, a locket of their mother was found in Justine's possession. And this locket was last seen with little William, so that seems like there's overwhelming evidence that she must have strangled William, she killed William to get this locket. There was theft. That's the idea. However, after having seen the creature, Victor Frankenstein is sure that the creature is responsible for the death. And so he feels awful about this, and he tells, he says, Justine's innocent. I know she's innocent. But when tasked with that, he can't explain how he knows she's innocent, because he realizes that saying, well, I created this creature and I brought him to life, and then I abandoned him, and then this creature came, and this creature, I think, has killed William, it's going to make him sound insane. It's going to make him sound, which you have to admit, he seemed pretty crazy for creating life like he did, secretly, and bringing death to life. So it would make him sound insane if he said, I know that Justine has not done this. So what he does is he basically keeps silent. And this is going to haunt him, because Justine, who is a very religious person, surprisingly confesses to the crime of killing William. Now, she tells Victor and Elizabeth in private that she is innocent, but she has confessed to the crime. She's a very religious person. She wants her soul to be, she wants salvation for her soul, and she believes she's going to be found guilty, and she doesn't want to go to hell. Basically, she wants to be saved or whatever, and so she confesses to the crime. And sure enough, she is found guilty. Justine is found guilty. This happens in chapters 8 and 9, the chapters we're not going to read, but she is found guilty and she is executed. And Victor contemplates suicide after this. He feels so badly about what has happened. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, this is, in a way, this is good that Victor is having a conscience. Now he's seeing what is happening as a result of his actions, and he is at least taking responsibility. However, Victor does not commit suicide. What happens is his father sees how grieved he is and says, you need something to heal you. And so he takes the family back to another family home they have in a place called Belle Reve. And once again, nature has this healing effect on Victor. Now, as I said, this is very in keeping with Romanticism, the idea that nature is healing. And I think we have to look here at these characters that have been brought in, especially Henry Clerval. Henry Clerval is open, he's engaging, he's very in touch with nature. He and Victor traveled through some nature areas together. He is kind of the opposite of Victor. And we see here the folly of Victor trying to ignore the rules of nature, natural rules. He has tried to create life and has gone against nature. So we see Victor being tormented by this. He's worked himself till he was sick. He's obviously not in touch with nature. And every time that he runs into trouble, it is getting back in touch with nature that finally soothes him. So we realize that there is a message in this, in that we are not to go against the laws of nature as Victor has done, but rather we see Henry Clerval. This is the path that Victor might have taken, but he did not take when he decided to create the creature. So they have diverged. They're very different, Henry Clerval and Victor now. Even though they're still very good friends, Victor has kind of gone away from these values and everything that Henry Clerval has. So as we come to the end of chapter 9, we're going to see Victor in a valley of a place called Chamonix, and he is going to have an adventure sort of in chapter 10. Now, the reason we skip chapter 8 and 9 is because after Justine being found guilty, it's basically Victor traveling around with nature, getting better, getting soothed. So not a lot of action as far as advancing the plot. But chapter 10, something major is going to happen, and that's why we're going to read chapter 10. So we have now covered chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9.